Now the question is, in this particular text, in this particular presentation of the text, you can find that different groups have been introduced. Okay, because the characters are not coming from air. Characters are the representative of a class. Characters are the representatives of the society. So whenever it is the matter with the characters, you will find certainly that the characters are belonging to classes. So if it has been associated with the upper strata of society, if it is associated with the middle section of the society, if it is associated with the lower section of the society. So everywhere you will find that each and every character is being associated with any particular kind of a class. Now the question is, whenever we read this particular text, we will find the list of characters. So let us consider the characters first. That means the names of the characters and who belonging to the different characters categories. Okay, Sutradhara and Noti, they are belonging to a particular direction, and the drama part obviously. Then there is Charudatta and Mrichchhakatika, as I mentioned, that they are the Brahmins. They're the Brahmins, not only Brahman but also merchants. And as I've mentioned earlier in my previous, or maybe the first one or two lectures, that generally it has been found that the Brahmins are not merchants by class. But here you will find a particular kind of a mixed up situation has been incorporated, where you will find Brahmana by class or Brahmana by Varna and merchants by class. So both these have been incorporated. The second one is Mrichchhaktika, who is a friend and companion of Charudatta. He is also a Brahman. There is, other characters that the names have been provided, like Churnavriddha and others, who are actually belonging to the class of the Brahmins. Then there are some characters like Bardhamanaka, who is the servant, Sambahak, who is a professional shampooer, who takes to gambling. So gamble is another important facet. Gambling is another perspective that is being incorporated within this particular text, because there are an ample references of the gamblers, okay, who are actually gambling. There is a group of personalities who are gambling, okay, and also the mendicant that we have found, that is Sambahak, okay. So ultimately in the particular character we can find the possibility of transformation and how a person can be changed from a gambler, from a professional gambler, to a Buddhist monk. So particular kind of a shift, particular kind of an orientation, how society is treating them, and how such a kind of transformation is taken place, and how he has been treated in a different way, how a person can change himself, okay, with the help of obviously Basanta Sena. So this is another important perspective that is being posited to represent the society, because gambling was present within this particular society. Now if you think about the about Radhanika, okay, or about the other characters who are the servants, like Karnapuraka, who was the servant of Basanta Sena, or Madanika, that is the servant of maid servant of Basanta Sena, okay, or maybe Kumbhilak, or the maid, or other characters. So everywhere, at the umbrella bearer, so everywhere you will find that a group of servants has been incorporated. Generally what happens, that in most of the cases, which are actually the most of the texts, not in case of the typical Indian origin or Indian classical Indian origin, but in the West, the servants are less important. The servants are not being provided with the names anymore. But fundamentally, whenever we are reading such a kind of a text, that is Mrichchhakatika, you will find that the servants like Radhanika, who is the Charudatta's maid servant, or Madanika, who is the servant of Basanta Sena, so, or maybe Karnapuraka, specifically Radhanika and Madanika, these are the two characters who are very much significant and important regarding the construction of the plot. What is being suggested, what I'm trying to say, is that both of these characters have been provided with much more importance, so far as the plot is concerned, so far as the structure is concerned. Now, if you think in terms of the particular conditioning, what is happening to Madanika, that is Basanta Sena's maid servant, when to save Madanika, the ornaments have been stolen, and what actually happens. So I'm not repeating that particular story because you know everything. So when we are thinking in terms of such kind of orientation, such kind of presentation, do you not think it is actually focusing on different kinds of practice within this society? So do you not think that it is a part of the society that is being provided with much more importance? Do you not think that it is a particular kind of a practice that have been made by the societal personages, or maybe the persons who are belonging to the society, the typical ways, the typical orientations, the typical thought processes, the way they have been treated, how they have been saved, or the persons they have been saved, or they have been saving actually. And ultimately here you will find the Basanta Sena like characters who are actually very much fond of character like Madanika and how she is treating her. So these are another particular pattern, another particular segmentation of the text, which actually focuses on the society in a different angle. So at one point you can find the society has been portrayed on the basis of the group of characters like Charudatta. At another point you will find that each and every character, that's why the characters are important. That's why the characters have become the agents with the help of which you can find that how the society has been portrayed, with the help of which you can identify that how the society has been treating other characters. Okay, and each and every character, they are not the individual characters who are completely devoid of the class. They are actually representing a class or a group of classes. And whenever it is a matter with a group of classes, you will find certainly that such characters have been treated in different and divergent ways, to be specific. Ultimately, you have to identify that there is a particular fundamental orientation of justice, how justice is bought and justice is sold, how justice is manipulated. That is another segmentation of the society that have been provided in this particular text. You have found Sakara, the Sangasthana, and ultimately you will find certainly that Sangasthana or Sakara is a person who is actually belonging to the power. Okay, because it is the power orientation that actually comes to the forefront. And when it is a matter with power, fundamentally, you will find certainly that Sangasthana or Sakara, he is actually a person who is exercising power by being the brother-in-law of the king, of the present king, that is Palaka. You will find that Sangasthana or Sakara, he is actually exercising power, or it is the malpractice of power, the misuse of power that he is actually incorporating. So in the present scenario, you will find that there are ample references in the pages of newspapers. You will find that there are also the characters, the persons who are just being the relative of the most powerful personalities and most powerful politicians or something like that. They are malpracticing power. Okay, and such a kind of orientation has been provided to this man. The man is out and out a villain, but as I mentioned previously, that it is a kind of the comic villainy that have been propounded to him with the help of this particular character. And fundamentally, you will find that somehow the temperament, the choleric temperament, the envious nature, to some extent, the typical form of villainy that has been attributed to this man, and at the same time, the harmful nature, how he can just, betray any person who actually comes near to him. So all these actually focuses on this particular character, and at the same time, as I mentioned just now, that this particular character has to be treated as a representative of a particular class. So these are the groups of characters who are actually exercising power in a different orientation. Now, another thing that is that comes to the forefront, it is the character of and that's why actually the justice I was talking about justice, how justice is blind to some extent, how justice is being sold, how justice is being manipulated, or maybe these have been maneuvered. So these have been discussed and described in a different way within this particular text. But at the same time, if you think about the people, the common people are completely free from these. The common people are always thinking, they're thoughtful, including the executioners, Jollad Jaraki. They are also with a particular view that somehow, that it is a matter with, Charudatta. So when it is a matter with Charudatta, the executioners, Jolladra Jaraki, they are also trying to save Charudatta from from failing or from they are also saving Charudatta for such a kind of situations, and they are also trying, they are also thinking that it may happen that ultimately Charudatta would be saved. And finally, I must say about there is the reference to Arjaka and also the kind of movement that have been described or that have been represented by Arjaka and other characters. And there are the ample references of the people who are generally supporting Arjaka, or who are actually they are thinking in terms of Arjaka's presence and his importance, and multiple associations that have been made in terms of them, how they are supporting Arjaka, how they are helping Arjaka to some extent regarding the political scenario, the political turmoil, and how Arjaka is actually overpowering Palaka. This is obviously a particular story of Marxism that I'm thinking. In a typical, say, political perspective, in a typical philosophical, or maybe it is the theoretical perspective, we can find that when a particular person is being made upside down, when the source of all power is being, it's a kind of a disempowerment. So when the power has been shifted from the center to the margin, when the margins are coming and ultimately they are fighting for their, protesting for their position. So each and every moment, the typical form of Marxist agenda is altogether present within this particular form, where you will find that somehow the people, the working class, okay, that have been represented by or presented by the presence of the character like Arjaka, they are actually fighting hard for their positions. They're also fighting hard for their, it's a kind of a protest. Shei Dori Dhore Marutan Raja Hobe Khan Khan. Okay. So the particular pattern that have been presented by Satyajit Ray in Hirak Rayar Deshe, you can also find that a different kind of torture. It is a story of a torture that have been provided with such kind of implications. So everywhere you will find that the virtue is rewarded, the virtuous are rewarded, and the vicious are punished. So that is the fundamental focus of each and every kind of good texts. যে যখনই আমরা দেখি কোনো একজন ভালো মানুষ, কোনো একজন better person, he has to be rewarded, and the vicious, the evil, or the criminal kind of characters, they have to be punished. Such a kind of orientation is always in work in most of the texts that we find. So fundamentally, whenever we think about the society, and as we have already discussed, or as we have already found, that though the primary focus of this particular text is based on the typical form of love affair that is going on between Charudatta and Basanta Sena, at the same time, you will find that at the behind, at the backdrop of this particular text, there is also a particular kind of a movement is going on. The movement that is coming from the lower section of the society, a movement that is coming from the commoners, where the commoners are actually attributing their experiences, or the commoners are directly taking part in the form of the protest. Why? To actually dethrone the king. And this particular form of dethronement is actually indicating towards a typical protest motive. And that is why at the end of this particular text, we find that somehow, though there is a particular king, it's not a king, it's a kind of a republicanism that has been incorporated. It is a republic to some extent, because the person who is coming to the power, he is one among the commoners. So therefore, that particular orientation of the text is altogether very significant in this particular reference. And fundamentally, you will find that this text also draws these multiple agenda to the forefront. So whenever the question certainly comes regarding the presentation of the society, or the societal picture that have been presented by Sudraka in Mrichchhakatika, you have to bring all these segments to the forefront. Step by step, one by one, first the differentiations, then the characters. Each character is representing a class, and ultimately how the classes have been presented, how one particular class is treated by the other class, how such kind of villainy versus virtuous temperament have been incorporated, how a quotation has been treated by the characters like Sakara, how the villainies have been incorporated, how the justice has been manipulated, how the dethronement and the process of Marxist agenda being incorporated in these texts. So everything actually discussed in detail in the text, and we have to point these out, and ultimately we will discuss them in detail in the form of the answer. It's a kind of an argument that you have to create in your answer book.